Welcome to Club Beautiful. This is your beautifully well conversation. This is a special edition. This is the pink edition happening this October 2024. Beyond the Diagnoses, 4 Stories of Resilience. This conversation tonight, it's not a panel discussion. We are 4 women who have been charged with the decision to come on board and share their stories. The beauty of this conversation is it will be led by the executive director of the Breast Cancer Survivorship Foundation. Carmen is a beautiful person, and we have truly become friends throughout this. Well, it feels like it's been a long time, Carmen, but that's what happens when you meet another breastie, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And in this conversation, we the goal is to leave us inspired. The goal is to build up I say the 4 ladies because I get to be a part of this conversation, but we hope that everyone within this conversation will leave feeling empowered, inspired, resolved to go back to the quote that we had for this Monday, that prioritizing you and your health, and how important it is. And Carmen will shed light on this. We say it all the time. Breast health is not reserved to October. I saw a recent post from Erica that it's not limited to the color pink, right? This is a 365-day conversation and a leap year 366. But tonight, in our time together, we're excited to welcome Mrs. Carmen Brown Marshall, Executive Director of the Breast Cancer Survivorship Foundation, who is also a survivor. She's been surviving this journey longer than the 3 of us who are going to share our stories as well. There's just this special gift in all of our stories. There's Christy Matoya. I better had said that right, Christy.
You did.
Yes, phonics worked for me. Christy is one of our newer survivor thrivers, and I can't wait. There's something I tell you, ladies, the light bulb will go off for you when we think about who our partners are in terms of healthcare and how to become that advocate. And Erica Buffalo, if you're on Instagram, you already know Buffalo Soldier. And I will tell you, Erica and I go back to we neighbors. I live right around the corner. Western High School, Dove Love is in the building. And as we share pieces of our story, I'll just tell you, prepare yourself to really meet a true warrior. So listen carefully to these stories and find what resonates with you. I want to start first. Oh, can we get a welcome? You know what? Let's get some reactions in the chat. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining. I'm going to turn my mic over to Miss Carmen Marshall, who'll introduce yourself, and thank you so much for sending your presentation. Although in podcast world, you may not be able to see this presentation, but I'll tell you, it'll be dynamic enough that you'll feel like you are right here with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick. From day one, I met Nick at Be More Healthy in Baltimore just 2 years ago, maybe 3. I think it's just 2 years ago. But my idea was just to go down to Baltimore to figure out how are women taking care of their best health? How are they getting to best health? So I'm Carmen Brown Marshall. I'm the founder, chief visionary for the Breast Cancer Survivorship Foundation. This all started by me writing my book, Looking Well Beyond Breast Cancer. And that is a figure of speech, a double entendre. Not only should you look well, like look at Miss Nick, always with her red lipstick, always just a knockout, like every woman on here, looking our very best, to also looking past that data point of a diagnosis, because that is not who you are. So it started with a book, and then it became, okay, a mission and a vision. I need to educate and to advocate and to inspire women that, breast cancer, number one, is 95% curable. And I don't think enough people hear that message. They hear all the negative stories and all the horror stories. 95% curable. If you've ever heard that before, can you put a one in the chat? If you've not heard that before, could you put a 10 in the chat? So it started with looking well, and you can see those pink glasses. In the book, I talk about your rose colored glasses, how you have to have the right attitude. So that's the first thing. So, number one, breast cancer is curable. 95% when detected early. So, how can we detect it early? Well, we've got to make sure people are getting screened personally. So, this is part of our mission. And in 3 years, this is the number of people we've reached in the area, almost 3,000 women. We've done 39 different community events where we will meet people wherever they are and bring a snack, something to eat, because we like to eat, and we want to bring something healthy. And we've talked to 42 different medical professionals, the sonographers, the people that do the ultrasound, the mammograms, and the radiotherapists. And we've got 14 different survivor stories curated. So that's what we've done in 3 years, because it's important to get out in the community and teach women about personalized screening. Now, Nick has already mentioned the ABCs. A, for your hemoglobin A1C, make sure you keep that at the right level. Your B, your blood pressure, that's supposed to be at a certain level. C, check your cholesterol. I'm going to add D for density. Do you know your breast density, and why is that important? Well, I've shown here a little pictorial, even though you're just listening. There's a new law that went on the books effective October 1st, which means your doctor has to tell you what your breast density is once you've received the mammogram. And if you're in the latter categories, they can't just say, well, you're dense. No, they have to tell you an alphabet, and they have to put it in writing. And if you're dense, you're going to need supplemental screening. And that means you're going to have additional screening in the form of an ultrasound or an MRI. It's personalized screening. The same way we can't all wear the same shade of red lipstick, we cannot all be imaged or checked the same way. So I'll stop there. And the third thing that I wanted to mention is that it's important that you have a tribe, that you have a support group, that you have trusted advisors in your circle. You now become the CEO of your life when you're diagnosed with breast cancer, and you must evaluate every board member, from your physician to your oncologist to the people that are drawing your blood, to every single person that is treating you, your dietitian. And I'll stop there because this time will go quick. So how's that for starters, Nick?
That's me and that mute button. That is awesome. 95% curable. Many of us may not have been aware of that. And that breast density matters. And I know you're going to hear it in these stories. Things that, as an advocate for your health, how do you advocate for your health if you don't have everything you need to know? So we're going to start out. I'm actually going to pin Erica and Chris. Thank you for sharing that with us as well. Carmen, real important to have, and that join the tribe. So I can't wait towards the end to tell them about what we have special coming their way. So I want to take a moment, and I want to start with Erica. Just piggyback into you, Erica. I'm sure you and Chris have retained your story over and over and over again. We're going to try to take it little chunks, bits by bit, and just tell the ladies a little bit about your diagnoses and one tip that they need to keep in mind, especially from a health perspective.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Erica, and I do have on pink. I'm protesting a bit because I have on blue and pink. I love it, but at the same time, it gets to be a bit overwhelming at times. So, a little bit about my story. I was originally diagnosed with breast cancer in July of 2022. I discovered my lump after losing a significant amount of weight on purpose and just really wanting to feel good about myself again and just really wanted to make some progress in my health and wellness. So I was doing some working out, working with a trainer, and I recognized that my body was changing. And randomly, I did a breast examination. And I say randomly because I'm not going to say that I did, I check my breast every month because I did not. I did it sporadically. And thankfully, I did it that day because I did discover a lump. My partner at the time confirmed that, yeah, something's not right here. That led to a doctor's appointment. By the time I got to the doctor's, which probably took about 3 weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks to get into a preferred doctor of my personal trainer at that time. And I'm very grateful that I selected that doctor because maybe a month or two prior, I did see someone else who I believe in my heart that the lump was there at that time and that person missed it. So I'm very grateful that I made the decision to advocate for myself and seek a trusted friend to say, hey, I feel like I have a lump. I'm not sure who to go to. I went to someone before. I'm thinking they could have missed it, but I really want to go to someone I can trust. So my trainer at the time, I went to her doctor, Dr. Karen Craig, who was with the GBNC care team. And I completely loved the experience with her. Long story short, she saw the lump with me just lifting my arms. So it wasn't a mystery. So it had been there enough that I still believe that it could have been saw. It could have been seen. Since that diagnosis, and Nick can tell you, my life has changed quite a bit. But in the midst of all of the treatments, the 16 rounds of chemotherapy, the 33 rounds of radiation, the 6 months of chemotherapy pills, one of the most important things for me was finding the joy in every moment, was really remembering the importance of each day and cherishing that. Fast forward to 2024, and I'm not even sure me and Nick have had an opportunity to discuss this. However, I recently had a reoccurrence of breast cancer, and my breast cancer is triple negative breast cancer. So it is known to return. It has returned and metastasized. And that was recently discovered in August 23rd, 2024. Ironically, again, thinking about my health and wellness, right? I gained about 30 pounds in my journey to recovery from the first diagnosis. And I had got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I'm like, you know what? I got to get moving again. I got to start moving in the right direction and get some of this weight off of me because if it does ever come back, I'm not going to be able to fight it properly at this weight. So, in working out one day, and it's so funny, I recently started writing my book, and it literally was a walk. And being on that walk, talking to my sister, saying, it's so weird that I'm in pain and I'm walking, but my arm is in pain. Like, that's really weird. During that walk, I discovered I had a lump in my lymph node, and that lump has now been determined to be breast cancer. I also discovered not just that lump in my lymph node, but I also have 2 lumps in my breast, and I'm being treated for metastatic triple negative breast cancer at this current time. And I will still say, aside from counting it all joy, I definitely think that it's extremely important to realize that your diagnosis is just that, a diagnosis. It is not your life. My life still continues. Every morning I get up, every morning I have the same opportunities as anybody else. And I think it's extremely important to live life that way. This is not the end. This is a beginning of something beautiful, something different. Maybe it's not like it was before, but that doesn't mean it can't be as great as anyone else's life.
Wow. I tell you, and I'm just, inside, I know a lot about the first part of the journey, just tapping into this second tier, and I'll tell you, we still saying counting it all joy.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. And this conversation is going to continue. I thank you for sharing that as well. In Erica's situation, here we go, and I know Chris is going to vouch for this, and then we're going to circle around to Carmen, who is also a survivor. This idea that you have to go with your gut and not be okay if you feel that something is still going on, and the fact that even in the midst of that, still taking care of her wellness, putting her health, making it a priority. and being able to build up the ammunition she needs to go at, we going at it again. Chris, you gotta tell us what happened. I want you to take me back to, and if you can, I know we got a lot of time. We got enough time. Please check the chat, y'all. Read the chat because I got a few questions I want to circle back to Erica. Tell us a little bit about what it was like, Chris, with your diagnoses. Try to incorporate a little bit. I know we talked for quite a bit, so I'm just going to hand it over to you. Tell us what life was like leading up to your diagnoses and the steps that you had to take to be intentional about your health.
So leading up to mine, last year I had a mammogram, and I'm going to be completely transparent. I had not had a mammogram in about 2 years because of the pandemic. Okay. So I have dense tissue, never had a problem or anything like that. So last year I had a mammogram. My doctor told me, we see some calcifications. We see something. We think it's nothing at all. You can get it biopsied or you can wait 6 months. I wasn't worried at all. I was like, I'll come back in 6 months. So 6 months led me to February this year, 2024. And I go, and he told me, when you come back in February, make sure you get a mammogram and an ultrasound. So I said, okay, I had that locked in my head. So when I go, same doctor, I say, I want both. Oh, no, you don't need both. You just need a mammogram, because an ultrasound is like opening Pandora's box. It shows a lot of things that are nothing. I said, but no, you told me to get both. And I went back and forth with him and I was adamant. So I ended up having both, and the ultrasound found it. So if I just had the mammogram, they would have sent me home for the next year. So that was just shocking to me. So on the day of, it was stage 1, thank God, and the whole thing's a waiting game. You don't know what stage, every test result, you're just waiting for the next, waiting for the next. And I was just really honestly terrified. And I really leaned into my faith, because at some point, that's all you have. You know, your friends, your family are encouraging you, but you're going through this personally. And it's just really scary at times. So I went for my first lumpectomy, and it was the same doctor. And I could not keep my mouth shut. And I said, you know what? Look, we're here. You told me it was nothing, and to wait 6 months. And I said, why did you tell me to not have the ultrasound? And he just hung his head down. He said, Christy, I don't know. I'm just sorry. I'm glad that you followed your gut and did what you had to do. And actually, what he saw 6 months prior wasn't even in the same spot. So that really wasn't anything. But because of the ultrasound, they found the other spot where it was actually cancer. So just going through that process. So I had 2 lumpectomies, and then, of course, the lymph node. They call it a biopsy, but we all know it's a surgery. And went through that, and then did not have to have chemo, and I had radiation. I had 20 rounds of radiation, which led me through July. So this is still, fresh this year. So that's basically my story in a nutshell.
Yeah. And, we hear in both stories, thank you for sharing that with us, Chris. You would have missed it, and you would have went another year not knowing the uncertainty. Carmen hit the nail on the head with the dense breasts. And that now we know a mammogram is not always enough. Before Carmen chime in, I know some of you may be familiar with my story. I didn't have a lump. I didn't feel a lump at all. My symptom was tired, that somebody had to tell me why the Energizer Bunny was losing energy. And I thought I was doing everything that my energy should have been at 100. I found a lump in 2010. So my first lumpectomy was 2010. It was benign and I had it removed. So I knew what a lump would feel like because I felt that one first. But this go round, the real deal, there was no lump. And I examined my breasts all the time. And not only was it a lump, but it spread to 2 lymph nodes. But it all started with tired. So I was fortunate enough that I had a healthcare team that when I complained about tired, they initially ran tests and thought it was everything else but what it was. And it was that regular mammogram that started the process. And even with that mammogram, it was not until the ultrasound was done that they could confirm exactly what that was. And Carmen, I saw you shaking your head. Please chime in.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, starting at age 18 is when you should do your self breast exam, and you should do it every month on that last day of your menstrual cycle. That's important. And then every year we should be getting clinical breast exams. That's by a doctor, right? And that's another thing that oftentimes gets missed. And then we get a mammogram. It starts with the mammogram, and that's just an x ray. You have to have an x ray. And the x ray will show you have a lot of fibrous tissue. That's what density means, that fibroglandular tissue. It's a lot of it, and it appears white. Cancer also appears white. And you will hear people say it's like trying to find a snowball in a snowstorm. It's almost impossible. So cancers are missed often with just a simple mammogram if you are dense. So you have to have that ultrasound. You will never be able to just have an ultrasound. You need to do the mammogram, which is going to show the white tissue, and then the ultrasound is going to superimpose and show that same tissue, but it's going to be black. And what they do is they put them both together and they look for abnormalities. So you need them both. And then there's an MRI. When they get to the point where they're trying to stage the cancer and try to figure out what grade it is, that's when they move you to an MRI. And I know you've heard these words, a lumpectomy. That's less invasive. That's more conservative. That means they're just going to go into the area that they suspect and try to clear a margin around where they believe that tumor is. Then they will do something like your sentinel node. That's the first lymph node off of your breast. And if they'll look through that while you're actually in surgery, and you'll get a phone call, because I did this, I worked in a lab for 12 years. They'll call up and they say, hey, did you check the margin? Margin's clear. Or no, you didn't get the margin. You have to go 1 more centimeter this way, that way. They give them the coordinates. So that's what happens. But it's important to understand these terms and how they work. And more so, I just want to talk a little bit about my story. I was doing all these things, right? I didn't smoke, didn't drink, worked out feverishly, wore a size 10 dress, loved it, living my best life, had a mammogram. 2 months later, I happened to be doing my self breast exam. That's when you stand in the mirror, hands over your head, lean forward, turn to the left, turn to the right, do all those things to inspect your breast. Naturally, I saw a slight indentation, and if I hadn't been looking, I would have missed it. And from that, I went to 3 surgeries, 8 rounds of chemotherapy, and 27 cycles of radiation, 5 years of adjuvant treatment. But a very important part of the treatment is your attitude. It's important that you stay positive. It's important that you keep an image in your mind, like Erica already shared. She's not the diagnosis. She's Erica, right? And she's got a full life. And when you hear things like triple negative, we all know we have hormones. We know estrogen. We know progesterone. Then there's like a human, I forget what the HER2 is an abbreviation for a human growth hormone. Those are the 3 hormones that they test for to figure out how you're going to be treated. And the thing with the triple negative, to this day, there is no known treatment, but what they are doing is offering clinical trials. And I know a lot of women would say, well, I don't want to be in a clinical trial, but we need the clinical trials, particularly for African American, Black women, women of color, because the data that they have is based on all Caucasian women. So what works for them may not work for us because our biology is entirely different. So I just wanted to make those preliminary comments because I saw some things in the chat.
Thank you for highlighting that. And it's so important to know it goes back to those terms. Carmen is a survivor, executive director of the Breast Cancer Survivorship Foundation. I will not say how long you've been in healthcare, but a long time in healthcare, in the trenches. So thank you for sharing that. I think you brought up attitude, and I wanted to touch on that for us. And just think in terms of attitude, even support, right? How do you define support? Who was there for you? How did you navigate through? Like what did that look like? I'll first ask about support. What did you need? What did you have? How was that? And then I'll follow it up with what were some of the things that you did to maintain positive attitude on days that you could. So I'm going to bounce it back to Erica. Like, what did support look like?
It's funny, support evolves, right? As you go through your diagnosis. Initially, my support system was my family, and that's interesting because my next of kin is my sister. I have unfortunately buried my parents and my grandparents. So my sister was my main source of support, and I would say good girlfriends. As I've grown and become a breast cancer awareness advocate, particularly with triple negative breast cancer, I've attracted the tribe that was meant for me. I prayed hard about God directing me and helping me to attract those people that belonged in my life to support me in the journey so that I have a deeper understanding of what that looks like and what I too can offer to other women in the community. Community works is really, really important to me. And I think that where I'm at now is tremendous. There's a number of breast cancer organizations that I work with, that I partner with, and that I try to educate myself with to stay abreast of the information. And I'm learning how to ask for support. I think one of the challenges with being a resilient African American woman and just a woman, period, right, is that you tend to put all of the weight on your shoulders. And when you're in a situation where you're forced to lean on other people, you don't know how to actively meeting with my therapist, my mental health therapist, and just really learning more about how to ask for help and not feel like a burden or that it's a challenge or that it's a weakness has really helped me to be able to communicate verbally what my needs are and what my wants are, aside from breast cancer, right? At the end of the day, you're still a woman. You're still a professional. You still have personal desires, but you have this illness, this chronic illness that still needs to be attended to, because even after we ring a bell, your life doesn't automatically go back. Actually, it doesn't go back to the way it was, right? It's a whole new world. You have to live differently. You have to look at things differently. And in doing that, you have to learn how to use everything that's within you to get everything that you need. And like I said, attracting that, making sure you're in the right spaces at the right time, making sure you're connected to the right people, and making sure you're open to what's meant for you, because I think that comes with a trained amount of discipline and commitment to yourself, right? To really be open to what's available to you in the world, what God is sending you, what you're supposed to receive. So I would say support has changed a great deal. I definitely think initially I wasn't as appreciative, and I'll be honest, of a support group, not knowing where I would fit in. Whereas now I look back over it 2 years later and say, what I didn't know that I would appreciate, I know how to offer someone else. If that makes sense. Like, I'm a part of many intake calls, and I think oftentimes a lot of groups want to give you a wealth of information rather than just listening. And I think those first conversations really require someone to listen, not just with their ears, but with their heart, and an extreme amount of empathy. And that's how you get people to want to be a part of something bigger than them when you're scared. When you've been received the diagnosis where you think this is the end, and you have people literally telling you this is just the beginning of something beautiful, even when you don't see the beauty in it. It's like I was recently gifted a painting called The Rebirth, and I look at it every morning and I'm reminded I was reborn in this process. I'm not who I was before. I'm everything that I'm meant to be. But as you go through that process, as you shed those layers of those things that you once valued so much, you are reborn in another way, that you look at life and you appreciate people and you listen and hear so very differently than you did before. So like I said, support is different. Support that I offer to other people, support that I receive, support that I know is necessary. It really evolves as you evolved in your breast cancer journey.
It's so true. Hit it on the nose. Are we open to the support? Do we even know what it looks like at first? Um, Chris, what does support look like for you?
I just want to say, Erica is so inspiring. Like I can hear you talk like all day long. Um, Support for me, similar to Erica, both of my parents have passed, and my mom just passed last year. So getting the diagnosis was really scary with my mom. Both parents not on deck, but my mom more recently had just passed. And that was just terrifying to me. I've never had any health issue, never been to the hospital, nothing. So then to get this diagnosis and not have my mom there was just really scary. But friends and family really, really rallied around and just showed love and support, whether coming by, calling, going to the grocery store, praying for me, sending me messages. So I really had a team, and I am so grateful for all the love and support because you need it.
It you you know, I tell you, between the two of you, and I know the ladies are blowing up the chat with this, it's you get to see the human side of breast cancer, right? So often we see images that would make any woman afraid to get a mammogram. Any woman would be afraid of, what could this appointment lead to? But you don't often always see the everyday. What's life like every single day? And how do one of those things that we do, we talked about the support system, but how do you flip that attitude from time to time? Because we're not always excited and happy and got all the support in the world to help lift us up. On one of those days you wake up and you still question what is happening to me, because those days happen. So share with us maybe that one thing that will bring you joy, like that one thing that would help you just navigate through. And I'm gonna flip back to Chris, and then I'm gonna come back to Erica. So just think of that one thing that you would do to help you just get through one of those storms.
Honestly, leaning into God, because there were moments just nothing else would give me any sense of peace, even if it was momentarily. It was just really leaning into my relationship with God and talking and praying. I think that was the most stabilizing thing for me, you know? So I would definitely say that. And I also was going to just kind of backtrack a little bit. I never found the lump, never felt a lump. The doctor never felt a lump. They only were able to see it and detect it through the ultrasound. So that was another thing I just wanted to add.
And thanks for emphasizing that too. Yeah. It's truly it's so deep. It's so deep. So Erica, you already know
So
what will get you
I
through.
love this part because it gets mixed reviews, right? So initially, Nick, I stand 10 toes down on God does all things well. In the beginning, first diagnosis, second diagnosis, there are no mistakes. There's no curse, there's no devil in this. God does all things well. And I spoke recently at a breast cancer ball, and I said, there's life in our tongue, there's life in speaking about this. And I believe wholeheartedly in most cases, those who were chosen are given an assignment to speak, to give life into this horrific situation, because life is still to be lived, right? And it's a matter of perspective. No matter how this journey looks for other people, there's still victory in it. There's still healing. What I mean? There's still life. And I have completely accepted and trust God's will for my life. And I can't even be upset. You know what I mean? I can't, I even in my darkest moments, the question is, why not me, right? It could happen to anyone. They say 1 in 8, but is it really 1 in 8? It's feeling more like 1 in 3, 1 in 4 right now.
It sure is.
So, now people, when we question the why not you? God knew, he knows everything about us, right? He knows what we're capable of. He knows what we would do with it. He knew that if the baton was handed to you, Nick, what you would do with it. You would make it beautifully well. You know what I mean? He knew that he gave it to Carmen. Carmen wouldn't just write a book. She would create an entire foundation. She would make waves. If we really, really think about it and get to the heart of matters, it's big diagnosis, which is why I say it's not just about the diagnosis. The diagnosis brings about the conversation, but we're also building community and sisterhood, right? Through things that were meant to knock us down, but they're uplifting us. We're learning how to be reborn, to live, to spread joy, to be the CEOs of our own life, Chief Executive Officer and Chief Enjoyment Officer, right? We're learning how to shift what, think about it, the weight that women carry. We're learning how to prioritize taking care of ourselves through such a difficult and challenging situation where we give grace and love and empathy to everybody else. But if you ask another woman on this call, when was the last time you given it to yourself first? You get breast cancer and you kind of remember, I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice but to give it to me first. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. You know what I mean?
I saw Carmen. I'm holding it together. It's all happy tears though, I'm telling y'all, because we call.
Wait a minute, you hit mute. Is that just
It
me?
sure did. And I was just
I
saying
did it
resilience
accidentally. My
for a
apologies.
reason. It's like it's beyond appearance. Because I know I tell you, my worst failing days, I look like a million, I look like $1 trillion because that's the level of effort that it takes to crawl out of a situation. That much more energy has to go in it. And I know Carmen, you wanted to chime in on this. How do you navigate through that? Just the attitude, the joy, the gift, the seeing the gift in it.
Well, starts with that grace and allowing yourself to feel what you feel. If you're angry, it's okay. If you need to cry, it's okay. But no matter what, don't stay in those dark places. And I know when I was diagnosed, the first thing I did, I went to the Bible because I said, God is a God who heals. It is not God's will for me to die young. I have a purpose in this life. God never wanted us to have this cancer, but we live in a world that is corrupt. So we come across things that not that you did anything wrong, not that I did anything wrong, but this has come along. Because the whole thing with cancer is a group of diseases. These cells that are supposed to die decide they're not going to die and they're going to take over different parts of your body. But God says no. I always say the big C is captivity. It's not cancer, it's captivity. Some people have lost the fight because they just could not tap into that faith. And I just encourage people. And I actually kept this. This is 20 years old. You can't see it. And certainly if you're just on audio, it's all my favorite pictures of me, my husband, when I got my wedding picture, and every one of them has scriptures written on them. And I would rehearse them. I wrote out every scripture of every person who got healed in the Bible. And I thought, if God healed them, he has not changed. He can heal me too. And he'll heal me again and again and again and again, because we live in a world that is filled with so much toxicity. But at the same time, it's okay to give yourself grace. It's okay to lean into however you feel. But at the same time, I'm one of those people that's from the generation, no matter what's going on in your life, you take a bath, you relax, you put on your makeup, you put on your hair, or maybe you don't wear makeup, maybe you don't wear hair. It doesn't matter. Whatever you need to do to feel good about you, do that. If that's getting a massage, if that's getting a facial, whatever, if it's getting your nails done, if it's getting a foot massage, whatever it is that help you feel good, because it will radiate to the outside where you'll look good. When you look good, you feel better. They even came up with a whole program for breast cancer survivors where they taught, I think when I went through it, before I even took one bit of chemotherapy, I knew how to wear a wig. I knew how to do my makeup. I mean, I knew all that stuff anyway, but they kind of walked me through the stages so that I wouldn't be fearful. And I know I may be rambling, but I wanted to touch on that thing of fear because it's very real. People get terrified. They think they're going to die. And the fact of the matter is, we all have a time, right? But at the same time, fear is always false evidence appearing real. It's not supposed to be something to encase you and keep you from moving forward. So it's nothing to be afraid of, a diagnosis of breast cancer, because you're going to live. You're going to get through it. You're going to write about it. You're going to journal about it. It's important to keep track of all your thoughts and feelings and lean into them because there's something deeper there. So I'll stop and just have a pause.
That was awesome, Carmen. And we appreciate that because it starts with the mind. It starts with the mind. And we give ourselves grace. I know Erica hit the nail on the head with just being in a place where it's okay. It's perfectly fine to do you, to feel like you, to deal with your feelings. And it is one of those things. There was a physician on a panel discussion I was a part of about a year or so ago that talked about the PTSD statistics with breast cancer survivors. That the PTSD rate for breast cancer survivors are higher than veterans. And I struggled with believing that analogy, but like, wow, how possible could that be? Well, they call us survivors for a reason. I know it's more than surviving. We are living, right? We are living, we are thriving, we are taking each day as it comes. But we have an opportunity to prove that our health doesn't have a choice but to be front and center. And I'm a big believer in that health spending account, that individual health account. What are we doing today? What are we doing every day to stock up enough to be able to use what we have in order to strengthen us up to fight whatever it may be? And in this case, a breast cancer diagnosis with ammunition because we are caring for ourselves. And that caring for ourselves goes beyond nutrition and exercise. We talked about that. That plays a big role. But when you're dealing with a cancer, it's mindset, it's self-care, it's reducing inflammation because you found a way to relax, you found a way to reset, you found a way to give yourself the day or the two of space that you need. And that stuff is so important because I don't know if any of us on this call have $1 million family members, but I know I had to work. I know I had to work through radiation. I had to work through, I don't know how much time. I don't think I took even a week off after surgery. These are things that in some cases, our circumstances, we're still working. We're still aiming to make things happen. We're still on the outside. Things appear to be normal. That word, quote unquote, normal. But in this conversation, what I want to do, ladies, you are going to be excited. And Erica and Chris and Carmen, I hope y'all are ready for your individual interviews. So we have to get your individual stories. We want the whole story. And this call was designed just to scratch the surface. And in this short period of time, I'm glad all you ladies, you hung on. You found out, one, we got to go with our gut. If one healthcare provider is not doing what we need them to do, we need to find another one, or we need to ask questions. Like Chris, we need to confront those ones that could have put us in a bad way, that we need to have that conversation, because that's going to help the next woman that sits in that chair or lay on that table. So he'll be more prone to not give that same advice. We think about being okay with how support changes and hoping that we're surrounded by people who understand our feelings, emotions, our needs at times. And then we cannot sleep on the fact that how we get through and carry through, all of us pointed to it, that you have to be a woman of faith, that you cannot feel that this is a fight that you're supposed to fight or battle alone. So in this October, this Pinktober, but we going 365 days of breast cancer awareness. Ladies, you will have access to the podcast. I have these beautiful pictures of Erica, Chris, and Carmen for the podcast cover. I can't wait to mention it. And the way this conversation went, let me tell y'all, it is totally a cliffhanger, because you want the details of how Chris managed to navigate through radiation. You want the details on how Erica is managing this next phase and how is she building up her energy, mental, emotional, and spiritually. You want to know that the Breast Cancer Survivorship Foundation and Amani Nicol Wellness is creating that community that Erica talked about, where all you want is an ear. You don't want another conversation. You don't want somebody to try to solve a problem that isn't a problem. You just want to vent. But you also want access to the education every woman needs to have related to breast cancer. And we are bringing it. And I'm so excited about it. And part of bringing that community is going to be able to take both Erica and Chris's story and Carmen's story and individual stories. So I hope, ladies, you're able to carve out at least 45 minutes for the story. Those stories are coming. I would love for y'all to give us some emojis or some chat. Please show some love to Erica and Chris and Carmen for joining us. Well, it was a long, long night. I'm sending my kisses. I love you all. I truly, truly do. Thank you for inspiring this tribe of beautifuls. And of course, this podcast edition is going to reach about 11 countries and like 200 cities. And we just know that based on your stories, thank you for your truth. It was an honor to have you all on. And I look forward to connecting so we can hear more of the story. Woo-hoo. And Carmen, your book, please come off mute and tell us.
Oh, I thought you wanted to do the beautiful tribe.
So how many books are you giving away, Carmen?
5.
So, ladies, everyone on this call, I have you. I know who you are. Everyone on this call, Carmen and I will do the drawing. We'll do the selection. 5 beautifuls will be able to get excited about receiving Carmen's book, and we appreciate that. And the information about Thriving Beautifully, the Breast Cancer Survivorship Foundation's community of survivors, is launching this month, and we can't wait. So make it a great night. Make it an awesome night. For those of you who tuned in to Beautifully Well Conversations with your girl, Coach Nick, stay tuned.